Hi everyone, welcome back. This is part 2. Napoleon invades the Holy Land, 1799. The Battle of Acre is about to start. They are low on weapons, the French, and they're looking for cannonballs, spent cannonballs. So, it's not looking good. And the British are on the water. So, before we get started, there's a thanks button on the channel. You can donate. All donations are appreciated. It's not required. Subscribe if this type of stuff you like. Click that bell. And if you don't want to do any of that, just give me a thumbs up. That helps. So, part 2, get ready for the battle.
Finally, on the 7th of May, Napoleon's replacement siege artillery arrives. Not wasting a moment, the French heavy guns open fire next morning. Large sections of the city's crumbling walls are brought down. French troops attack at multiple points.
Forgot to mention, the end of the first video, a bomb was exploded here, did some damage to the fort, which I think gave Napoleon more of an idea to really we need to get into this we need to end it. So if you hadn't watched it, part 1, that was that.
Fight their way into the city. But counterattacks by British Marines and Turkish troops throw them back. General Lannes is wounded in the neck and has to be dragged to safety, narrowly escaping the Pasha's head choppers. On the 10th of May, Napoleon calls on Kleber's grenadiers to make a final attempt on the city. "Nothing could be more beautiful than Kléber on the day of battle," remarks Napoleon, as the general leads his division forward with unflinching courage. General Bon advances with his troops in support. He is mortally wounded in the fighting. For all the French heroism and courage on display, the firepower, ferocity and skill of their enemy proves insurmountable. Napoleon, observing the attack from a forward battery, is knocked off his feet by a near miss. Finally, he accepts his men have done all that can be asked. The attempt to take Acre has failed. Acre is Napoleon's first major military defeat. The 4-month campaign will cost him 4,500 casualties, more than a third of his army's fighting strength. Nevertheless, Napoleon has succeeded in his main objective, neutralizing the threat from Syria. On the 20th of May, his army begins the 300-mile march back to Egypt. En route at Jaffa, Napoleon orders that around 50 of his men, riddled with plague and unable to march, be put out of their suffering with an overdose of laudanum. They are mercy killings. The victims would have suffered worse at the hands of the enemy. But the decision is still controversial. The French retreat continues into the desert.
It's not just also about the suffering. It's got to... If you leave them behind, yeah, they're going to die. And you just really can't transport them. Unfortunately, you have to leave them. It's a terrible position to be put in. And I think the mercy killing, if you give them the option, I'm sure they would have rather taken that. But it's Still gotta hurt to have to, put your men down when they've done so much for you to that point.
The heat is overpowering, and water in short supply. Morale is at rock bottom. Finally, after 25 days of marching, the army reaches Cairo on the 14th of June. Their return is marked by triumphal parades and celebrations across the city, organized by Napoleon. He is determined that his campaign be seen as a stunning success, in Cairo and in France. The men have just a few weeks to rest. On the 15th of July, news arrives that the long-awaited Ottoman invasion has begun at Abu Qir. There is no time to lose. Napoleon must hit the enemy immediately, before he can break out into the Nile Delta. With most of the Cairo garrison, Murat's cavalry, and Kleber's division, 10,000 men in all, he races towards Abu Qir. The experienced Ottoman commander, Said Mustafa Pasha, has 9,000 men entrenched in 2 defensive lines guarding the fortress of Abu Qir. His plan is to force the French to attack his strong defences. Napoleon is thrilled to learn this. The enemy has nowhere to run. At dawn on the 25th of July, he orders an all-out attack. The first Ottoman defensive line had not been completed and is overrun in minutes. French cavalry sweep around to cut off the Ottoman right flank. Hemmed in against the sea, the defenders panic and flee into the water, hoping to reach the ships offshore. Thousands drown. With D'Estaing's division advancing on the left, Lannes in the centre, and Murat's cavalry on the right.
Just a random question. How many of you can swim? Because I think if you're going to get into the water, I know that's not true for everybody. You're going to try your best to swim. Like, I can swim. Swimming is not a problem. It's what lives in the water that wants to eat me that I have the problem with. But the water itself is fine. So drowning wouldn't be an issue unless somebody was trying to grab a hold of me, which I'm sure a lot of people did in a panic, just grabbing a hold of somebody to try to keep themselves up, pushing them under. But I'm just curious how everyone else would be. Would you drown? I mean, if you're able to get off any extra weight, because I think today, at least U.S. soldiers carry like 80 pounds of extra weight. It's crazy. It gives them back issues when they're older. It's a mess. But I'm curious that once you get all that off and you're just in your you're in your outfit, would any of you who can and can't swim? That's what I'm asking in the comments.
The French now advance against the second Ottoman line. Anchored by several redoubts, it resists the first assault. But when the French fall back, over-eager Turkish soldiers leave their entrenchments to pursue them. Murat seizes the moment and charges forward with his cavalry. The second line is overrun. Murat pushes on to the Ottoman camp, and despite a gunshot wound to the face, captures Mustafa Pasha at the point of his sword. By 1 p.m, the Turkish army has ceased to exist. Just 5,000 survivors remain, holed up in the fortress. They surrender 8 days later, on the 2nd of August. 1 year to the day after the destruction of Napoleon's fleet. The Battle of Aboukir is a great victory for Napoleon, and does much to repair his reputation after defeat at Acre. But news now reaches him of developments in Europe, and for France, the news is not good. A new second coalition has been formed against France, led by Britain, Russia, and Austria. Their armies have won a series of battles against the French, reversing almost all Napoleon's gains in Italy, and now threaten the Republic with invasion. It is no time for France's best general to be far from home, unable to influence events. La Patrie is in danger. Napoleon's next move is not in doubt. On the evening of the 23rd of August, Napoleon quietly boards a frigate near Alexandria, with a small entourage, including Berthier, Marmont, Lannes and Murat, and sails for France. To his army, he leaves only a short proclamation. The news from Europe had determined me to proceed to France. I leave the command of the army to General Kléber. The army shall hear from me forthwith. At present, I can say no more. It costs me much pain to quit troops to whom I am so strongly attached. General Kléber is not amused by his sudden promotion. He's deserted us with his breeches full of merde, he declares. When we get back to Europe, we'll rub his face in it. But Kléber will never return to Europe. The following summer, he is stabbed to death in Cairo by a young Muslim radical. The remnants of the French army in Egypt surrender to the British in 1801, following defeat at the Battle of Alexandria. They are later repatriated by the British Navy under the terms of a peace treaty. Napoleon's expedition to Egypt was a costly failure for France. Its aims, which had always been vague and opportunistic, became impossible following the destruction of the French fleet at Aboukir. And though it has lived long in popular imagination, for every dashing act of heroism or romantic legend, there was a moment of immense brutality and terrible suffering. The expedition did have one positive legacy. Shortly before he left for France, Napoleon was invited to inspect a stone slab that his troops had pulled from the rubble while building a fort near the town of Rosetta. Dating to the 2nd century BC, the slab was inscribed with a royal decree. Uniquely, the same text appeared in Demotic, Ancient Greek, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. The French had to hand it over to the British under the terms of their surrender, which is why the Rosetta Stone now sits in the British Museum. 2 decades after its rediscovery, the stone proved the key to unlocking the lost language of Egyptian hieroglyphs and revolutionizing the study of ancient Egypt. This and other discoveries by the French savants spawned an entirely new discipline: Egyptology, the study of Egypt's distant past that continues to fascinate and amaze us to this day. Napoleon's voyage across the Mediterranean takes 41 days and involves some close shaves with the Royal Navy. But his destiny was not to be thwarted a second time. En route, he makes his last visit to Corsica and the town of his birth, before setting off for France to take the next step in his astonishing rise to power. Bias and misinformation are as old as history itself. In this video,
make sure that's the end of it. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna end it there. So that was interesting. I didn't know about the I didn't know about his experience in Egypt. What the hell? Is that an alligator suspended from there? I hope it's still alive too. It just bites at people's faces when they walk by. All right. Yeah, I didn't realize he had went there. And to me, the whole reason of going there, okay, he went in 1798. His troops surrendered in 1801. So to me, it was just, I mean, they found the Rosetta Stone. That's cool. I've heard of the Rosetta Stone. Didn't know what it was exactly. So, like, that's cool. But 3 years and then 23,000 troops surrendered. I don't think that was worth it. So, but that's just my opinion on it. What do I know? I'm not Napoleon. So I'm going to end this video here. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. Thanks for watching. And until next time, have a good day. Have a good night.